Okay, all right, let's get going with this module. Can you all see my screen? Great. So this was the roadmap for the 6 weeks. We started out with some foundation concepts and really an introduction and creating psychological safety and build a nice little community here in this first Build Your Inclusive Leadership Muscles cohort. So thank you for that. We started with that. Then we talked about best practices in module 2. Then we did a deeper dive on recruitment and retention. Obviously, based on the time, it's a very high level review of those strategies, and there's obviously more that can be shared in each of these different modules, but we got an introduction to recruitment and retention in module 3. And in module 4, we talked about different communities that exist that you can leverage to build partnerships with, to create more inclusive cultures. Module 5, we started talking about different technologies. Thank you all for submitting your module feedback forms, and I will be incorporating the feedback after this session, so thank you for that. And then today, it's about bringing it all together to walk the talk on this inclusion journey. What I want to talk about, just very quickly hear from you about your accountability partnership and any feedback on module 5 that you want to bring into this space. And then we'll dive into module 6. I asked each of you to create your plan, so hopefully you have something that you can share with the group, and we can again give you some feedback on that. And then we'll do our Celebrate Success moment. So that's our agenda for today. So in terms of walking the talk, I heard in some of the feedback, we want to know about more companies who are doing it well. So I thought I would just introduce a couple companies in this section of people who are actually walking the talk when it comes to inclusion. And here's example number 1, which is a company called Cisco. It's a technology company, and I've seen them a number of years ago, so this is not recent, but I went and took a look at their website and just what they're doing, and I thought it was just, even from a heading standpoint, inclusion and collaboration and action. I love that. It just tells me something without even diving deeper in. But if you take a look at their website, you'll find out they have initiatives around equal pay for everyone, taking a stand on social justice. It wasn't just one responsive action. They've been doing work for some time now. So that might be a company that you want to take a look at for ideas and also benchmark. So that's Cisco. The other company that I'm a fan of, the Chief Diversity Officer has since retired, Rohini Anand, but Sodexo, they have gotten a ton of awards for the work that they continue to do. So I would take a look at their website and take a look at what activities they're doing. Again, you can look at Diversity Inc. or even Diversity Best Practices, because they've been getting these types of awards, and even Great Places to Work. Many different surveys that you can check out to get a glimpse into what some of these organizations are doing. My caveat around the benchmarking surveys is that companies can be doing something and there still can be the bumble stumble, happening still. So, take it with a grain of salt, but it is an opportunity for you to get some ideas to weave into your plan and weave into what your organization can do. So Sodexo was another company I thought would be good for you to look at again. Deloitte, this one was interesting because they have a lot of information available. And I honed in specifically on something around board diversity, because that's a place to look as well, and what you can do with board diversity. I thought this quote was interesting. It all starts at the board to set the tone for inclusion as a priority, both internally and externally. So if you aren't looking at boards in your organizations or organizations that you deal with, that's a great place to look. And this, if you go to the Deloitte website, and I can also put in the LinkedIn group a link to this, so that you can get some more information, but they talk about what specifically you should be looking at the board level. So this is another resource for you. And of course, I did not want to leave out Ben & Jerry's, because I have just been so impressed with what Ben & Jerry's have been doing. And believe me, people have been trying to poke holes into Ben & Jerry's. Not only do I like their ice cream, but I like their attitude and what they're doing behind the scenes in terms of their values and initiatives. And this is under what we stand for. And I just loved it. So I wanted to give them a plug again in terms of organizations to benchmark in terms of walking the talk when it comes to inclusive leadership. They are not just about social justice. They are, as you can see here, doing a number of things. So another company to benchmark. What did you find in the conversations that you had with your accountability partners this week? We talked about technology last week and what you were doing to build up your inclusive leadership muscle. So please tell me, how did those conversations go? And any companies, new companies that you've uncovered that you're impressed with that's walking the talk in the inclusive leadership space?
I personally really liked Textio and Blendor. Like, those were ones that I felt like fit with my organization. And Brian and I did talk about those a little. I think some of kind of my struggle is, like, you know, we're a nonprofit, and so for a for-profit company to spend a couple $1,000s on a recruiting platform or a language platform, it probably wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be as big of a deal as it is in nonprofit. So, you know, my kind of plan is to send them information, but point out what tactics they're using. So like Textio is taking, making sure our language is inclusive. Well, technology probably does it a lot better than we do, but peer review might do that too. Blendor, you know, taking the names and contact information off of resumes. You know, that's something that's doable too without that technology. I mean, if they come back to me or like, awesome, we're going to buy this, then that'll be like a huge win, but that's not something I really expect.
One of the things I might suggest to you, Sarah, is to just get them to agree to a demo. You don't have to convince them to do the investment. You can bring the idea, shine a light on ideas for them to consider. And these companies know more about their technology than you do. So, you know, you've seen this new tool in class, you think it would be a great resource for the organization. Can I get some folks to just do a demo and get the demo?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think that's an easier sell.
Yeah, because, you know, it's like trying to convince people. It's like finding sponsors. You want to get other people talking and sort of selling for you. You just bring the idea forward, and then you let them come in and talk about what can be done. Maybe you set up the Zoom call. Hey, heard about this great tool, would love to see how we can use it in the organization, would love to schedule a demo to get your thoughts on how we could implement this. And you never know what some of these vendors have in terms of different pricing for nonprofits as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And sometimes those are not advertised prices. You have to ask and they'll tell you, but they're not going to go out of their way to tell you, is what I've found.
And now might be a different time too, based on what's going on in the world. I think most organizations are having to pivot anyway. And so there may even be some COVID pricing.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. Okay. All right, so those are some examples. Now, I want to talk to you about opportunities for walking the talk. You know that we've delved into several different areas over the last 6 weeks, but in terms of what I consider best practices or people that are walking the talk, I think one of the very things to look at is at the leadership commitment. Immediately when we were faced with challenges around racial equity, equality, etc., folks were looking to leaders to make a statement, to take a stance. So look at your leadership. What is the commitment from a leadership standpoint? What is the organization values from an inclusion standpoint? Is there an opportunity to tweak those values to include more inclusion? What are the actions that the organization is taking, that the leaders are actually taking? Because we saw that when companies came out with a statement very quickly, people were looking at what actions are they taking. So if you just came out with something, people were going back and digging for some dirt to just make sure your commitment matched up to the actions that you were taking. And it was okay to say, to be vulnerable and say, we're not where we need to be. But to hide it was a different story. So really look at your leadership team, look what they stand for, what is their commitment to an inclusive culture, what is their commitment to walking the talk when it comes to inclusive leadership. So that's one thing. Also, look at your learning and development team. What training is offered? Where does the training come from when it comes to inclusive leadership or diversity and inclusion training? Is that something that comes out of HR, or is that something that's integrated into ongoing training from a leadership and development standpoint? Is there one-off training? Because know that if there's one-off training, that is an opportunity to beef up that area, because people forget what you teach them in class. They go in, they do their time, because some organizations have, goals that we want everybody trained on this. Yep, trained, that's it. You've got to follow up with your people to make sure they're leveraging the learning that they've got, and you've got to provide them with additional training. It's not one and done. So I think in terms of looking at inclusive leadership and walking the talk, look at training. Also listening. There are lots of employee engagement surveys, or maybe town halls, it's maybe suggestion box. Is your organization listening to what employees are telling them? Is there a space to allow employees to be truthful? What I mean by that is that in some instances, there can be an unwritten rule or vibe where people feel like they need to cover. And so they may not be completely truthful with what they're sharing. So listening is an important way to walk the talk. So you listen to what's being said. Lots of organizations are having listening sessions right now around social justice and how Black and brown employees are feeling. The key for that is not only listening, but taking action. What is going to happen after you've heard all this stuff that, by the way, may be uncomfortable to hear? The other opportunity is talent. Talent, not only from a talent acquisition standpoint, but a talent retention standpoint. Are you taking bets on the talent that you have? Are you giving people opportunities? And remember, we talked about those job descriptions, or people expecting like the whole kitchen sink with providing opportunities to talent. I'd suggest to you that the more you bet on talent, the more you are walking the talk in this inclusive space. Because if you have a culture that is okay to make a mistake and correct it and work with your talent, then truly you're going to see different results. Check your culture, check the temperature of how inclusive the culture really feels. I had a call yesterday with an organization, and they were talking about there's an opportunity for us to clean house and do our stuff before we tell other clients what to do. And so do a temperature check of your culture. Are there opportunities for more inclusive leadership, and where is that? Employer branding. Take a look at those surveys we talked about. Those are opportunities for the branding of each organization to be, what am I trying to say here? Employer branding is about let's think about Ben & Jerry's and the brand, or even Penzi Spice, if you've ever heard of that organization. It's a spice company. I actually like Penzi Spice because the president is always sending out an email, and it's always a provocative email around inclusive leadership. And then they change their products to support what's going on. And I always remember that brand because of what they stand for. And I go back again to the Ben & Jerry's and that employer brand. And I even think about companies like Nike and what they're doing, right? Just you think about the swoosh and them talking about don't do it, the video that we shared earlier in the program. So check the employer branding and what it stands for, again, back to the values of the organization. And this is not just about organizations, this is also about you as individuals. We talked about this program being an opportunity for individual to meet the organization where the organization is, to allow for greater inclusive leadership. So what are your personal values? Maybe there's an opportunity from these conversations that we've had for you to think differently about your personal values. We talked a lot about corporate actions, but what are your individual actions? I know for me, it has been challenging. Let's take Facebook, for example. Now, Facebook has had some challenges around their advertising with vendors like Verizon pulling advertising dollars because of Facebook's values. And so I've been challenged because I use Facebook. I have a business page on there. Do I shut all that down? And I think we are individually challenged with each of the decisions, actions, our commitment, etc. Because then there's Starbucks, and what happened with the Black Lives attire at Starbucks? Do we stop going to Starbucks? So I had planned to stop going to Starbucks, and then I wanted to see what happened at Starbucks and talk to some of the employees to get a different perspective, because that is what inclusion is about. It's not just one and done. They did that, that's it. It's trying to get curious and to understand what's happening. So I'm saying all that to say that think about yourself as an individual and what your actions are, what your values are, what your commitment is in this inclusive leadership journey. What is your company spending its money on in service of inclusive leadership? Think about that. Take a look at the annual report, ask questions, pay attention, get curious. What is your company spending their money on? What are you spending your money on? So there's an opportunity there as well. Who are you in partnership? Who is your organization in partnership with? For community outreach, what systems do they use? What policies? This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but this is an opportunity to better walk the talk when it comes to inclusive leadership. What do you think?
Cindy said she's in the waiting room.
Oh.
She just sent an email.
I'm not even looking at, see, this is what happens when I go on, I just start talking and I don't look back at it. Let me, okay, let me find this thing. I don't see her in the waiting room. Oh, yes, she is.
Did she have the old link?
No, she's in the waiting room. Here she
Oh,
is.
great.
Hi, Cindy.
Hey, everybody.
I did not know you were in the waiting room because I just started talking and I did not look back at it. So we have gone through a bit, but
Oh, that's okay. You guys keep going. I'll catch the replay on the stuff I missed.
Yep. Okay. So I was just asking, can you guys see my screen or did it stop share?
Can see it.
See it.
You can see it?
Yep.
Okay. So we just had a discussion about opportunities for organizations as well as individuals to walk the talk when it comes to inclusive leadership. And I was asking the group just for some feedback on thoughts on walking the talk.
I think this is a really comprehensive list, and I think you did a great job with the voiceover. And I think whether you kind of think of it as walking the talk, which is the activation and the going forward in all of these different areas, this really encapsulates a lot of the components of a well thought through diversity, equity, inclusion strategy, right? Touches on all these things, which, you know, you can be working in certain areas and getting traction, and certain other areas could be lagging behind. So it's constant management of those different elements. Can't necessarily, using the walk the talk metaphor, you can't always be walking at the same pace in every area. And I think communication kind of ties a lot of this together. So it's that type of thing where how do you continue to declare what is the commitment, and then all the things that reinforce it, you know, supported by these different things. So I think this was you know, a lot of content.
Yeah, I'm glad you thank you, Brian. I'm glad you brought that up. And this is what I want to tell you. It is hard work to consistently be inclusive. You are going to mess up, and it doesn't have to be intentionally mess up. You could do something where someone feels excluded and you have no idea, they've not said anything, and you're just going about your business. So understand and give yourself grace that this is in fact a journey. We take it one day at a time. What I want you guys to do is go out as change agents and create change in your sphere of influence. It's the organizations that you are working with, or associations that you are a member of. It's people that you're around, continuing the conversation and enlightening others. You don't necessarily have to convince, like we were talking about, Sarah, just how am I going to convince HR or the tech team when this is not my role to take this stance. What you're doing is you're introducing, and you are asking questions. You're getting curious. If you see someone being treated unjustly, ask questions. I mean, if it feels difficult to be that advocate and champion, ask questions till you get comfortable and more confident to really step into that advocate role. I want you to continue to work and to go out and change the world based on what we've talked about over the last 6 weeks, and even more, because you know what's been enlightening for me is hearing what's happening with your accountability partners outside of the sessions, the conversations that you're having, the things that you're posting in the LinkedIn group, because every day I guarantee you there's a piece of content around inclusive leadership, whether it's in praise of it or against it. No matter what social media platform that you're on, there is some conversation. I have to tell you, on Facebook, it's a little trying for me because some of the content that has been posted is very disturbing for me. And I have to work really hard at protecting my mental real estate, if you will, because the content is trying. So you're going to come across content, conversations, things that are upsetting, but I want you to keep going, and keep being that change agent. And by signing up for this program, it tells me that you want to do that. You know it's the right thing to do.
I have sort of a comment about that. Over the weekend with several people in my life. And I'm going to talk about this more in kind of my own goals, but like I end up in these emotionally exhausting drag out fights about language and, you know, other people's perceptions of things that I find problematic. And I mean, I think it is kind of like, in some ways I feel like I have to pick my battles. Like I know that there are some people who aren't going to change. And then I think there are people who are interested in learning more, and maybe, maybe me bringing something, a different thought in with love is the way to go with that. But I do think in some ways I feel like I had to pick my battles for my own like sanity, because I could fight people all day. Like I'll go on.
Yeah. I think that's
I think that's a valid concern, especially, people like you, Simone, who are like, this is your work, the exhaustion factor could get very real on the constant battle. And then I think for people like me, particularly like I'm brown, and cancel culture, if you will, has become a problem, because we're pulling something someone said 20 years ago and saying, kick them off the board, screw them, whatever. And it's like, we're not allowing for growth. And then there are people like, all of us here who are learning. And like you said, we're going to misstep. We're going to, in an attempt, as you learn and then you try to implement, like that grace comes into the conversation. Like how, so a company was doing nothing and now they're doing something. But then, part of the social justice movement is, blasting them for being performative. Well, performative is a start. They weren't even performative before. Before they were just ignoring the problems. So maybe that's where they begin. Now, if it stays performative and there's nothing beyond that, yeah, I get it. But then the question is like, how much do we fight? Like, do you, the whole like, bees with honey, not vinegar thing comes in. But I also am cognizant of the fact that, we are fighting for rights and inclusivity. So there's like, to me, it's like this dance of like, how much do you fight versus how much do you educate, provide awareness? Like Sarah said, when do I just step back and say, I've done what I can here. They're just not interested in expanding their thought process in any real, meaningful way. And then protecting your own energy from all of it. So it's I appreciate all the, and I did get a chance to go back and watch all the videos, so I'm caught up, all the information you put together, because, as I work with corporate clients, like I don't work in a corporate environment anymore. I don't have an HR or anything like that, but working with them, on their strategic plan, which incorporates all of these different things that you have listed here. So it's like, I can raise that question and say, well, how are we, being inclusive in this piece? So these are your company's objectives. How are those objectives inclusive? What does that look like, in your marketing or in your, policies, or how is it really implemented? And if I asked your rank and file versus the executive team that I'm typically meeting with, what would they say? How you're doing? So it's a lot to digest, but I think for me anyway, my thought process is to keep in mind that I'm also learning, and I'm not going to be perfect at every initiative, and the companies we're working with and for hopefully are in the listening and learning category versus the, we got this category.
Yeah. I think those are really good points, Cindy, and Sarah. Be nice to yourself, because after you have those conversations, you can feel your emotional energy has been impacted. So pay attention to how you are feeling when you're showing up. If you're not feeling particularly strong, then the conversation could go in a different turn. So that will help you to decide, to your point, what battle to pick. Last week, you may remember me saying somebody came for me on Twitter. I decided not to engage because I really felt like there was going to be no win and I didn't have the energy for it. It's not to say I can't go back and address the comment that has been posted, but at that particular time, I felt like I need to protect myself so that I can continue to be the game changer, the change agent that I want to be. And so I want you to be kind to yourself on this journey, because people will try you, and even if that's in your own family. Awesome. So I wanted to hear from each of you. Let me start with Zoe, just on your action plan and what you are committing to doing in the next 90 days.
Sure.
Do you
So
have
I
something
think
you want to show? And by the way, if you want to share it, you guys can respond to the email and share your plan if you want, because we won't have enough time to do a deeper dive. And if you want more feedback on your plan, it's a small enough group where we can share it. So you can share your one-pagers, and I'll give you some additional feedback if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, so I identified 4 steps to take. The first was based off of our conversation last week, was to reach out to some technology companies who offer services that we can start promoting and partnering with, so nonprofits have better access to more reliable platforms that can help them with their hiring practices. So that was my first step. My second was to make an effort to purposely reach out to some more diverse trainers to bring them into our training program. Generally, our training program trainers come to us and we kind of filter out applications that we get. I don't have to do a lot of reaching out to trainers just because we have so many. But I think making an effort to actively reach out to more diverse trainers to bring in is something that I need to start doing. The third is engaging more minority-owned businesses to recruit for our vendor program. So making sure that we are including locally owned, diversely owned businesses to incorporate into our vendor program, so we can begin promoting those businesses on our website and in our emails and stuff like that. And to just allow, a wider range of options for people to choose from. If people are going to make these action steps to support more diverse businesses, then we can be that conduit and they can come to us and then we can then refer them out. And then my fourth thing was deciding on a diversity training topic for our annual conference, trying to recognize what's going on in the world right now and making an effort to talk about it with a group so large. Like usually we have 600 people. So not shying away from that topic, because I think, it can be easy to say, okay, well, there are other things that we can talk about like COVID and state funding and stuff like that, but really kind of leaning into it and making sure those conversations happen, even if it's going to make people uncomfortable or, they don't want to do it. So those were my 4 steps.
I am so proud. I think that's awesome. I have 2 questions for you from what you've shared. Number 1 is just individually, personally, what action are you going to take for yourself? Those are very organizational based. So perhaps consider one thing that you want to do for yourself as an individual over the next 90 days.
I didn't actually think about it personally. I thought a bit more about like my organization. I have been trying to
right now.
Oh, okay.
But that's some feedback. I want you to think about individually, because you're going to need to be showing up during these 90 days. And what do you need to do for yourself? And was there anything in your support column that you came up with that you need help with?
So the support, I think, because most of my goals are organizational goals, will come from a colleague of mine. She runs our business development program. So I think partnering with her a lot to kind of do that outreach and to do that research and she'll be the one who is selling the vendor program. So making sure that she is up to speed on like what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it, which shouldn't be difficult. So.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Awesome. I owe you an email. I have some thoughts on what you've said as well. Okay. Awesome. Brian, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. Can I try to share my screen? Maybe folks can.
Sure. Oh, fancy. Let me see if I can make you let's see. If anybody wants to, okay, I'm going to make you the host.
Okay. Promise I won't. Whoops. You guys see
Do I have to stop? You are now the host, so I don't know if.
You have to stop sharing your screen first, okay. Simone, and then he'll be able to share his screen.
Okay. Stop share. Okay, I did.
And now, Brian, you should be able to, if she gave you permissions.
Okay. Just pulling it up on my screen. Thank you. Let's see. What do you see? You see the
You see
bottom
it?
of a grid here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So building off of last week's session, I had put it on my list to do and didn't get to it yet, but that invitation you made, Simone, to sign up for Blendor, I kind of thought of this both sides of the equation, on the organizational level, to become more familiar with the technology tool, platform, app, so that I could possibly, request a demo for a future organization and or understand how it is designed to work. But then also, if it has relevance to me in my job search right now, then why not, because I kind of see it, if I understand correctly, high level, it sort of like parses out all of the sort of dimensions of diversity information that would kind of give someone a bias, right? Always male, always white, always gay, always name is unique, whatever those things are, so that you get a more equal footing. So I thought that that was an interesting one that I wanted to kind of check out. I guess it's sort of like, they call matchmaking was in the terminology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think most of you know, if not all of you, that I've been working to, get another full-time corporate DEI leadership role. So I know we're in the summer, so it's harder going in terms of interviews and stuff, but obviously success is securing a full-time job. And then I'm doing the power of law of attraction. Great company, great manager, strong commitment to DEI with leadership, engagement, funding, and resources. That's what success looks like.
Nice.
And the support I need is the universe, my network, and trusting my instincts.
Nice. You got it. You got it.
I joined shortly after George Floyd's death. I've been interested in it for a while, but I thought it had gone dark because of COVID, because they used to meet weekly in person, but they did move to a Zoom platform, and they've been lively as heck. We're currently working on a Get Out the Vote campaign, given that we're less than 100 days out from the next election. And we're finishing up one book and starting the next book will be reading The New Jim Crow. And so the things I need, obviously, to make it happen is I need to get a copy of the book or download it through Kindle. And then I've made a commitment to contribute $50 of postage as a donation for this Get Out the Vote campaign. I've secured a short-term contract with the Westport Country Playhouse to do a DEI culture assessment and to lead some type of a organizational education workshop. So interviews are being scheduled for the next few weeks, and then the workshop would be after Labor Day. But I'm going to have the opportunity to speak with 12 of the board members and staff. And then I'm going to customize the content based on what really emerges. The one thing that I know is that out of 27 trustees, there's only one person of color. And out of the entire staff, 12 that are full-time and on the payroll now and 12 that are furloughed, they're all white. So they want to be a difference in the community, but they are dealing with what they're dealing with right now. So we'll see how that unfolds.
I think it's interesting because they've got some programming that targets, over the years that I've seen, that targets the African American community. So I'll be interested to hear how this unfolds just on the other side, because I get their postcards in the mail, and I'm always looking to see what type of programming they offer. So I have noticed that they do try to target more cultural diversity.
They've been trying, but to very little effect, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'd love to maybe talk to you offline.
Yep.
I think, part of it even when they, you know, they usually do 5 signature plays per year, and then variety of other smaller secondary programming. And I spoke with their key artistic director, and, you know, again, just like corporations, tracking the numbers, right? They do something that is written by a Black playwright. They put more Black and brown folks on stage, and they get less attendance. So then they get a drop off noticeably in their patron, you know, so they're trying to figure out how do they broaden the minds of the local constituents to be more, you know, versus it feeling like there's this polarization. And yet the contrast to that anecdote is that last year they did the musical In the Heights, which featured predominantly Black and brown folks on stage, and it was their #1 sellout of all time. So I don't know if the insight there is around musical versus dramatic. You know, it's, you know, what are people willing to tiptoe into, right, as a viewing public? But yeah, so that's going to be an interesting journey, and it's only the beginning. And then I'm stealing Sarah's thunder a little bit, because she mentioned this when we met on our accountability call. It's just this idea of this ongoing calling people in, as we've talked about, right? Almost daily, there are these opportunities to have these upstander conversations, and not just to sort of absorb and be, you know, what is it, collusion? Is that the word? When you are just sort of not saying anything, and therefore your silence is basically, you know, falling in line with whatever inappropriate stuff might be going on. And so obviously I need patience. And then I've been studying a little bit about nonviolent communication methodology. I think Sarah said something earlier. It's the idea, when you get so passionately worked up about stuff, how do you kind of have the emotional intelligence that calls you back so that you can actually engage in a way that could be productive? So that's my overview.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Brian.
I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah, make me the host again, please.
Sarah, were you there the whole time, Sarah? Because I guess while I was looking mostly at my worksheet, I could only see 4 people, and I was like, "Where'd Sarah go?" I'm back.
Okay, here's what I want to do. Am I the host again, Brian? Can you make me the host again?
So Cindy, I'm leaning on your tech expertise. How do I reassign? Because I'm not seeing it.
You're going to go to click on the participants, and then go to her, and then promote to host.
Make host, got it. Yeah, I guess part of what I don't know is if Simone could maintain the host position the whole time, but people could still share.
Right.
Yes, and she can.
Okay. But I think it's now back in your court, Simone.
Yep, it is. So I want to show this because I don't want Zoe to jump off without seeing this. So I'm going to take a break, and then we'll spend the last 15 minutes going through the rest of the plan. So this was, can you see my screen?
Yes.
This was the vision, and I want you all to still do it. I opened it up till the end of today, and it's 30 seconds or a minute, but this is the vision. And I want to say thank you, Sarah, for getting your video in. But if everybody else could get their video, it would look more Brady Bunch-ish with more more faces on the screen. But this is what the vision was. Can you hear it? Greetings, it's Simone Morris, and I want to say thank you to everyone who has participated in the first cohort of the Build Your Inclusive Leadership Muscles program. It has indeed been a transformative experience and so much fun to take this journey with you for the last 6 weeks. It is my hope that you continue to invest in yourself, in building those inclusive leadership muscles. There is much work to be done, and you are vital in this space. Pat yourself on the back to say congratulations for investing in yourself, investing in your organization, investing in this program, investing in me, investing in the future. You did it, and congratulations on completing the Build Your Inclusive Leadership Muscles program. Well done, everyone.
Yay, we made it. Happy last module day, everybody. This has been an amazing experience. Simone, I can't thank you enough for leading us through this. I've learned so much, and I think have a deeper understanding for what it means to be an inclusive leader, and some tangible action items that I'm walking away with that I'm going to continue to use for, you know, as long as I'm in the workplace and in different community organizations. Brian, you're the best accountability partner ever. I hope we stay in touch. Thank you all.
Oh, that's fun. I'll have to do one when I get back from, I'm in the mountains, so we had to find Wi-Fi. It's a little sketchier, so I'll do it when I get back.
Oh, were you guys able to see that?
Just hear it. We couldn't see the video.
Oh, I'll send you oh, okay. I was so excited about it. Okay, I'll send you the video so you can see it. But if you go in and do your video, I'll recompile it so it will be everybody's video in there. I think I enjoyed it. I felt very special hearing the message. So thank you, Sarah, for getting yours in. And if everybody else would get 30 seconds or a minute in today, I'll compile it and send it out. I'll send you the one I have right now, but I'll also update it. But I wanted you to see that, Zoe, before you had to jump off, so. Or hear it. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Sure.
Are you sharing screen or?
No.
Okay.
So I had 5, but I kind of condensed them. I mean, the other 2 were just kind of small. So, you know, I think for me there's 2 big ones. I know all of you know, even though it's, you know, not out there in the world yet, that I'm going to be starting a new position, and part of that is hiring a team. And so my first kind of commitment and thing that I've been really thinking about a lot is using the tools we've learned in several modules about recruitment and retention when we go through that hiring process. So I said specifically blind resumes, inclusive language on the job descriptions, standard interview questions, decide on how much weight likability has on the hiring decision, and to bet on talent. That's a lot, but I think there's definitely aspects of that we can do pretty easily. It's not out of reach. And so that's kind of my commitment in the next 2 months as I start looking to hire people to really try to be as inclusive as possible with that process. The other big one is, as Brian said, you know, I liked this idea when Simone said it at first, but then like just after this weekend and all of the energy that I spent probably on people who are never gonna change their minds, is calling in instead of calling out. So calling it in instead of calling it out when I see or hear something that goes against inclusive values, work on approaching the conversation with empathy and love instead of anger. And I think, you know, that's sustainable. And probably more effective, because if I'm wasting time on Facebook, like you were talking about social media, addressing someone's, you know, racist, sexist, bigoted comment, that's energy. And so conserving that energy for the time and the place where it matters and where learning can occur. You know, I think it is a fine line because there are times when I'm gonna say something. Like if it's ridiculous and I still know that person is never gonna learn, I'm still gonna say something, but maybe I don't expand that conversation and let it really take hold of my emotions, because I definitely start then just leading with my emotions, and I then kind of become, it's easier for me to, how do I say this? It's easier for someone to say, like, look how silly and emotional you are, basically. And that's something I struggle bringing up issues as a woman, but also in this space, I think I'm very often, when I get really riled up, kind of taken as, wow, she's so emotional, and letting her emotions control her. And so that's definitely like a personal aspect that I really want to work on. The other kind of smaller ones were, in terms of who's going to replace me in my old position, really offering suggestions that on talent. And I have a couple people in mind who I think would be great. And so, I have been asked for my opinion. And so making sure that I'm doing what other people did for me, and betting on, my potential when I was a brand new professional in the workplace. I did just start reading White Fragility, and also kind of have a commitment to find some literature around the calling in instead of calling out, because I think I could probably use some more training on that. And then the sending and explaining the technologies that were presented in class to HR, and I'll follow that up by saying, presenting the idea of a demo. So those are mine.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. I'm so proud of all you guys. You are changing the world, and I'll be keeping tabs on you. So feel free to send me emails or reach out to me and let me know how things are going and how I can support you with what you're trying to do. Wonderful.
Thank
Cindy.
Okay, so for me, we're self-employed. We don't have employees, but we work with corporations and individual entrepreneurs. So in our business, our client base is very diverse. So we're real proud of that. We have every continent on the planet represented. We have ages, we have abilities, so those kinds of things. But my commitment is to continue my own education on the things that I'm less familiar with, like ableism, and then LGBTIQA plus issues, because I'm not as well versed, being Hispanic, Afro-Latina, actually, all the things. So I have a good handle on those issues, but I'm still educating myself. I'm currently reading White Fragility as well. I'm in a book club, and that's the book that we're reading right now. And I have a whole reading list of different books in that vein that I'll read each month so that I can improve my awareness. Ableism became a newer topic of understanding for me because we had our first legally blind student taking our course. And so we had to make adjustments in our material and how we delivered it, and all of those things, which to me was exciting, that we had the ability to expand as a small business, our offerings to ensure that we were being inclusive. So I'm, that's my goal there. And then, understanding for me specifically, the LGBTQIA community, I am not as well versed in all of the terminology. So that has been my first homework assignment to myself, is understanding the terminology so that I'm applying it correctly and that I'm being inclusive with my language. And that's something that I'm, attempting to work on. I'm really, used to using the he, she pronoun and not applying it in other ways. My daughter is bisexual, and she's been a great advocate for me in learning and pointing me to resources so that I can understand better how I can be better a support for her, as well as the communities that she's involved in. So that's, important for me. So those are my learnings. Even though I'm brown, I don't think I know it all, because that doesn't make me a know-it-all. It means I need to still understand, and especially the terminology, like the root causes of things. And understanding the spectrum. Like I participate in some groups that are really, really entrenched on, don't use the word tribe because that is, defeatist and this. And so, I feel like, wow, okay. So now, so then I get a little flustered because I'm like, saying something like I found my tribe to me is a good thing. I don't use it. And so, I also have to understand for myself, like where I'm going to fall on that spectrum. So that's my personal learning, and then my personal learning, because we are the, I'm the COO of our company. I need to ensure that as we build and as we bring in clients, that we project that with our clients. And so for us, we want to be more selective corporately to only bid on work that they've demonstrated their commitment to being listeners and learners and growing, versus, and so some clients, we will not be seeking to renew our contract because they have not demonstrated a commitment. And that's a blow to our revenue for sure. But to me, if dollars speak, I need to be able to use to do it that way as well. And not only put my dollars where they're used best, but also to accept money in a way that feels proper. So that's our business goal. And then, just as I have a platform, I write for multiple large publications. So ensuring that as I put my message out, that I also interweave the inclusivity piece into the business teachings that we're doing. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Wonderful. Oh, I'm so excited for all the plans of walking the talk. You guys rock. Very exciting. Cindy, I wonder if two things. One is, can you post the list of books that reading that you have? Can you post that in our LinkedIn group?
Yes.
And then you may want to connect with Brian, and have a conversation. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I heard you mention LGBTQIA. There may be just a coffee chat. Doesn't have to be an education, but just a coffee chat. Sorry for volunteering you, Brian, but I want this
connector. It's okay. I can share what I know, but I also know that there's a limit to what I know.
Right, right. So I'm just saying, let's leverage this community to learn from one another. And because this is the last class doesn't mean that's it. We can still be resources. I'd love for you guys to keep using that LinkedIn group and sharing articles or questions. And I will be trying to keep that going and growing as a resource for us in terms of education. So please do use it.
Will we be able to ongoing reference back to the member vault and the recorded modules if we need to refresh on stuff?
Yes, I keep in mind that that's going to get updated. So the content will get updated, and if I decide to switch platforms, that might be a thing, but for now, yes, you can refer back to it.
Based on all of our inputs and builds, you're going to
Yeah, I'm going to update it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to continue to update because I'll be doing additional cohorts, and so the learnings that come up, this program is going to grow. So let's see. Next steps, what's going to happen next? I would like for you to complete your Module 6 survey feedback form. I am going to send you an overall program survey for you to complete, just on the whole program and your experience. Go ahead and do your video. If you have not done your vid hug, I think that would be great. I will send out the vid hug, the current one, like I said, and I'll send out a revised one. And as I said, I want you to stay connected. I think this has been such an amazing opportunity. I am so thankful to you for taking this journey with me and with the group. It felt like a special connection, and we learned together, and more to come. Please stay connected with me. Social media, email, whatever. If you want to do a call with Simone.com. You can go ahead and do that, but it has been my absolute pleasure to take this journey, the first Build Your Inclusive Leadership Muscles program. By the way, I think I'm changing the name to Inclusion Bootcamp, but I have just loved this experience. Questions, comments as we wrap up?
No, thank you. It's been great. It's been a great experience.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it really has. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot of things.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. Let us stay connected. You're getting your Tuesdays back. But,
Sarah and I've committed to a lifetime of accountability partner calls. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Awesome, awesome. And you guys are rocking. I want to hear more about your inclusive leadership action plans and any help that you might need. And by the way, please refer this program to anyone that you think would benefit from attending the program, running it again in August, and then another class in September. And I'll send you the link to the website as well, which is going to be updated later today. But that's it. Thank you so much.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good day, everybody.
On the group.
Bye, Sarah. Take care.
Bye.
Good luck.